The real NBA offseason is about to begin, where everything is off. So we got to tie up all loose ends, including LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Gary Trent Jr., and all the other things that are yet to happen that will probably unfold over the next couple weeks on today's All-NBA show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Marc Stein of the Stein Line Substack, which you should be subscribed to. It never stops, even through the deep off-season, still dropping gems for you. Marc, how you doing today?
I'm officially worried about you.
Me too, man.
It sounds like Vegas has taken a bit of a toll on our trusty host.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, it's the season. It's just the season. Like, my body is giving up. I am a little bit sick here as I limp into my break, my downtime. But it's not just Vegas, man. Vegas was a great time, but it's also these wildfires and everything else here in the West. I see the East Coast complaining about it. I'm telling you, this is how we live in July and August out here in Colorado.
Well, I just want to say off the start, my eyes might be darting a bit, but I promise you I am listening intently to everything you're saying.
Yeah.
But LeBron James is about to, while we're doing this show, I think he's going live with his latest podcast taping in New York. So I'm going to try to keep an eye on that in case there are any pronouncements while we're on here. So
yeah. Well, let me start with, obviously we're going to talk LeBron here, and so because that's the big story, but I'm going to just start by saying it's kind of exciting. It gives people like you and I content. We've been talking about this for months, it seems. But what is the status of people around the league? Like, are people ready for this to wrap up? Is the league itself ready for this to wrap up and everyone to move forward into their off seasons?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really interesting that on Tuesday night in my notebook, I wrote about how LeBron's decision was holding up schedule makers. And then Adam Silver yesterday, he spoke at that Fanatics Fest in New York, and he outright said, I'm ready for LeBron to announce his team because the key puzzle pieces to the schedule can't be done. But look, I would also say, like, this is in 2014, LeBron did not choose leaving Miami and going back to the Cavs until July 11th. He really held up free agency that summer in 2014. This summer, yes, we are now in week 3 of LeBron watch. I mean, it has stretched. And unless we get a surprise announcement today, more signs than not point to this going into next week as well. You know, there was definitely a rumble in Vegas that is LeBron going to want to wait until after the World Cup when he can really claim the domestic sports stage? The World Cup final is Sunday. So, I think there is certainly a case to be made, and there are plenty of people anticipating that this might go, into next week. That said, 80+% of the league's offseason business, and maybe it's more than that, is already done. What is he holding up? I mean, yes, DeMar DeRozan, Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal, there are a handful of free agents who are still waiting and will have to wait until LeBron decides. But the bulk of the offseason action is done. So we wouldn't normally have something this significant to talk about on a podcast that you're doing on July 17th. So is it so bad? I really don't think it's so bad. I think it is certainly testing some people's patience, but
yeah, it's testing mine a little bit, but you know what? Like you said, it is something to talk about. It is interesting, and I do hope it wraps up next week and doesn't linger on beyond that, just because it does feel like the NBA ends, middle of July. Everybody kind of exhales, and if there's still things lingering, it would feel a little bit odd. But let me ask this, just kind of to set the table. There's a lot of talk around Cleveland, Miami, Golden State. Is Philadelphia, Denver, Minnesota, is there any hint that those teams have been eliminated from contention?
Those teams all still think they're in to some degree, or at least none of those three have come out and said, we believe we're out. I mean, a week ago at this time, I was doing a live stream for Bleacher Report with Jake Fisher, Chris Finch was our guest. And Chris Finch said he believed that the Wolves were still in this. Philadelphia, I think, is the, out of those three teams, if we're talking Nuggets, Sixers, Wolves, Philadelphia is the team that is most often mentioned. So I do think they're still in this. But honestly, Jake and I co-wrote a story on July 4th, and I haven't heard much change since then. The teams in this race, for the most part, regard Cleveland as the scenario to beat. Now, that doesn't mean it's an unbeatable scenario. Miami, Golden State, Philly, by all accounts, are all still being considered. Minnesota and Denver, you have not heard the Wolves or the Nuggets come out and say, we know we're out of the race. And look, LeBron had multiple appearances Thursday. He did a live podcast taping of Mind the Game with Tyrese Halliburton sitting in for Steve Nash. And then he did a sit down with Rich Kleiman for Boardroom. And of course, Rich Kleiman is the longtime business manager of Kevin Durant. I think the most revelatory things that we heard from LeBron yesterday, he suggested that he might play more than one more season, which makes it makes me feel good, because around this time last year, late July of 25, I wrote a really long column, and I don't normally do pieces like this, but I did really a column of what I believe, like having watched LeBron's whole career, my best read, my best analysis of everything we knew a year ago. And one of the items I had in there was go for year 25. Next season is going to be 24. If you played 24, you might as well go for 25.
It's a nice round number.
Who's ever going to play 25 NBA seasons?
Wow.
He's already got the record. If it was, again, it is not me, and I don't have to do the on-court work. But if I got to 24, I'd be trying to get to 25. So he did open that door yesterday, but really something else I thought that was, there was no news. People were hoping that there was not going to be an announcement yesterday. I mean, why would LeBron, this is a live taping, it's not live streamed. I don't think LeBron's going to announce something to a big audience that now the audience is the one that gets to disseminate his decision. This is not televised anywhere. As I said, I think they're taping this episode of The Shop as we speak, but you can't watch it right now. All we can do is people who are in the audience can, put highlights of it on social media. I wouldn't imagine that's the way LeBron wants this decision to be disseminated.
Yeah.
But of course, now I'm so old. I lost my train of thought.
Let me just ask you this.
Exactly where I was going with that one.
How do you think he will announce this? I think how he announces it will be part of the story.
What I really think is he will have supreme control over it. Look at the history. This is his fourth foray into free agency. 2010 was the decision. 2014, he waited till July 11th and then threw an article in Sports Illustrated, co-written with Lee Jenkins. And then in 2018, a press release that just was distributed by Clutch Sports very swiftly, dramatically, without warning. LeBron is joining the Lakers. Rest assured they have a plan of some sort. And like I said, I wouldn't anticipate that it's just something they reveal to an audience at an event and then just see how it gets out from there. Like, that just doesn't seem like the way they would do it. And again, at Summer League, there was that chatter that don't be surprised if this waits until after the World Cup, because Argentina and Spain and that guy named Messi, like that is captivating a lot of the world's attention right now. Maybe not in the Mares home, but it's a pretty big deal. So I could certainly see him deciding to wait. Oh, I know where I was going. The other thing he said yesterday that, there wasn't a lot of news, but this was somewhat newsy. He relayed a conversation with his daughter, Zuri, who I think is approaching age 12. And LeBron, in his own retelling of their conversation, said he told his daughter, like, next season, I'm not going to be home like I've been because I'm not going to be playing with the Lakers. So does, and I don't have a definitive answer to this, but does that mean that the family's going to stay in Los Angeles? And if that is the case, LA has been LeBron's base for the last 8 years. He has never been with one team longer than his 8-season stint as a Laker. If the family is staying in Los Angeles, that to me was always among the Warriors' strongest selling points here. And in recent days, the Warriors' chances have been repeatedly diminished by ESPN. But if that is a variable, and again, we have to ask these as questions because LeBron is not saying, family is 40% and basketball is 30%.
Right.
Like we don't know the breakdown. But if that comment suggests that the family is staying at home, I would think that gives the Warriors some optimism because you cannot commute from Los Angeles to San Francisco in the strictest sense. But the Warriors have had multiple players in recent years, Chris Paul, Jimmy Butler, those players like to spend a lot of time in Southern California, and the Warriors have made that possible. So I'm sure if the Warriors could convince LeBron James to choose them, he would have some license to go back to LA here and there, which I imagine, again, this is me reading things because LeBron's not telling me this, but I imagine that would be attractive to him. But the other big, what I consider to be one of the surprise developments of this free agency, before free agency started around the league, it was not anticipated that he was going to be looking at all these Eastern Conference teams. And now that free agency has actually started, and this thing is now in week 3, all these teams are describing Cleveland as the scenario to beat, and both Miami and Philly are prominently in the mix. And if he goes to an Eastern Conference team, it's not going to be a surprise at this point. And like I said, I think a month ago, that would have been harder to imagine, but he could very well pick Cleveland or Miami or Philly, and that would be a very dramatic shift for someone who has been very comfortable in Los Angeles for 8 years.
Well, I think the thing for me, this is the last thing I have on LeBron, but it just seems like he's very good at keeping the secret. It doesn't seem like a lot of people actually know the momentum. So all the conversation is, well, the Bay is close to LA, so he could commute. Cleveland's home, so he's going back to the place it started. Miami, he has experience there. But all of those things are almost circumstantial. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It makes narrative sense. And then we talk about Minnesota, Denver, Philadelphia being eliminated because there's not narrative sense to those teams. But it seems like that's the extent of it. Do you think there's anything more to this momentum? That there is there actually are some clues and signs, or is it really everyone's in the dark minus a very small handful of people?
Yeah, I think I have to think Rich Paul does have a pretty decent feel here. Obviously, I would imagine LeBron's wife has a pretty decent feel. I mean, he has an inner circle that knows how to keep these things under wraps. So, he has advisors, he has a tight circle, but, we also do have to allow for the idea that, is it possible he hasn't decided yet? Is it possible he is still choosing between these teams? I think we're only going to know that when it's over. And of course, then there will be TikToks explaining how he got to this decision.
Sure.
But, again, I think some people are turned off by it. Some people are sick of it. Some people have lost their patience. But, I'm more in the mode of, it's July 17th. We do have some pretty heavy stories that are, a lot of uncertainty hanging around the league with Kawhi and now Gary Trent and, the Portland Trailblazers and their future. There hasn't been a lot of talk about that, but Adam Silver at his press conference earlier this week, Adam Silver said there are open issues Excuse me. Now I'm coughing and I'm
contagious.
I jinxed myself. Adam Silver talked about the open issues with the Blazers' future. So there are some like this summer is not over. Like we still have restricted free agents. Like there's a lot of things that will still happen, but having a story of the magnitude of LeBron to have a story of the magnitude of LeBron still needing to choose a team and that may be happening the week of July 20th is significant. And I just saw a tweet. So this is from the Shop's live. They're live recording an episode of the Shop at Fanatics Fest in New York. Alex Raskin from the Daily Mail is tweeting, no decision yet from LeBron James. He told the audience that he hasn't made his mind up yet on his next team. So,
come on.
Okay, so there you go. Adam Mares is not buying it.
Just the whole idea of like it's still teams can still be I can be persuaded. I just don't know. I imagine he has a strong
still
chance.
have a chance.
We still have a chance, man.
Get Jokic. Make that call.
Yeah, no, let's go for it. Let's move on to some other topics though. The Gary Trent Jr., I think we teased this last week that Gary Trent Jr. signed a very curious contract, 4 years, $64 million. And it was so curious, in fact, that I heard immediately from people around the league saying, I'll bet you they investigate that deal because it's so fishy that it feels like something's going up. So what is the latest on Gary Trent Jr.'s contract and the league's interest in that contract?
Well, it wasn't actually signed until yesterday, and then very swiftly after it was signed, the league acknowledged that, yes, it's going to be looked at. And I wrote about this earlier this week. I was hearing rumblings before the draft of a 3-year deal in the $45 million range. And what ended up happening? A deal a year longer.
4 years.
And it's 4 years, $16 million in average value, guaranteed all 4 years. Like, one of the trends of this summer, multi-year contracts that were only guaranteed in year one.
Yeah.
Norm Powell is coming off an all-star season. Only the first year in his new deal with Chicago is guaranteed. Team option in year 2. John Collins signed and traded from the Clippers to Detroit. 3-year deal, but only year 1 is guaranteed. The Lakers gave 4-year deals to a couple role players, Sandro Mamukelashvili and Quentin Grimes. But for Gary Trent, coming off the worst statistical season of his career and coming off 2 straight seasons when he was a sub $4 million player with the same team, the league is compelled to look at this and examine it. And that will now happen.
I think the league, like whatever comes of this, it's certainly fishy, but this is a second contract, fishy contract story in the last calendar year. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard, which is unresolved at this moment. I feel whatever comes of this, it's just a bad look for the league if people are starting to question how these deals get done. And so to me, it feels like there's some momentum towards skepticism amongst fan bases to say, how does the league actually operate if we have to question almost every deal that comes out that doesn't make sense?
Yeah, well, one of the interesting elements to me in this one was, look, the Kawhi Leonard situation obviously infuriated numerous teams. And how did the Kawhi situation that led to the league commissioning an external investigation come to light? That came through Pablo Torre's reporting and his podcast that revealed all this stuff. There was a whistleblower. One of the reactions I was hearing in Vegas when the Trent deal was reported, it was reported on Saturday, 4 years, $64 million. The Bucks and Gary Trent Jr. have this agreement. Who among other teams was going to be mad? Like, were other teams going to protest this? If the Bucks want to severely overpay a player, like, who's complaining about that?
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because the whole wave and stretch situation with Damian Lillard, I've heard that described as the Bucks were already dealing with somewhat of a self-imposed third apron because of the tremendous amount of money from the Damian Lillard wave and stretch that sits on their books. And now they've done this, so it's going to be very interesting to see what the league decides. And as I said, LeBron is the next big domino to fall. And then once he chooses, there will be a slew of contracts, minimum contract signings still to go. But I would say there is still a lot to be figured out and decided this summer.
Yeah.
Like it's going to there will be news to monitor and track for sure.
Well, we only have about 10 minutes left here, so let's take our first break, our first and only break here. And on the other side, let's just lay out all of the loose ends from the season, from Jalen Duren to Peyton Watson to Kwhi Leonard. Let's just set the table for those so we can anticipate what's coming here in the coming weeks. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? How about now? Are you thinking about starting your own business? Well, Shopify is the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Shopify even powers the All City merch store. Shopify has you covered with website creation, product descriptions, email, social media marketing, and more. They also have AI tools that are designed to help you maximize sales. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into... with Shopify on your side. Sign up for their $1 per month. That's a crazy deal. $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/allcity. That's shopify.com/allcity. Also want to tell you guys about Shady Rays. We all know that moment, the one where you realize you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach, on the roof of your car, or at a gas station 3 states away. Well, I've been there too. But I've got Shady Rays. They've changed the game. They've got sunglasses that are made for real life. They're good looking, polarized, durable, not stupidly expensive. And the wild part is, if you lose or break them, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements. So you can wear your sunglasses without fear on hikes, concerts, on a boat, wherever. Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. Go to shadyrays.com and use the code ALLCITY for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Back here, final segment of the season of the All-NBA show. And we're just going to tie up the loose ends here with Marc Stein. You guys should be subscribed to his Substack, which is the Stein Line, because he's updating it throughout the offseason, and you'll always get the latest insight from around the league. So, Mark, where do you want to start? Kawhi Leonard, Jalen Duren, Peyton Watson, or somewhere else?
I think it has to start with Kawhi, because we don't know how long that's going to take. Now, I do want to underline both the Raptors and the Clippers still believe the trade is going to go through as agreed. But the league, what they have said about it out loud is coming weeks. That's the only time frame we have for how long it's going to take, not just for Wachtell Lipton to complete the investigation the NBA has hired them to open, but the league will have to digest the results of that investigation to make its ruling. So how long is that going to take? By all accounts, the Raptors and the Clippers appear prepared to wait for it. Kawhi has already been operating as if he is a Raptor. We've seen him at Summer League. We saw him at Kyle Lowry's retirement. Brandon Ingram and Grady Dick, they've already been operating as if they're Clippers. So
weird, man. Weird situation.
Yeah. So the confidence is there on the team sides that this is going to go through. And basically the pause is the Raptors' choice, because what they're trying to protect themselves against is a worst case scenario where Kawhi Leonard's contract is voided. Now, does anyone really think the league's going to go to those lengths?
Why?
Now,
it would hurt Toronto more than the Clippers. I mean, that obviously hurt Kawhi, but to me, that's why I just don't believe anything can come of this. Anything substantial.
Well, there could be a suspension. It is conceivable.
But isn't that worse for Toronto? Like, wouldn't that be the league dropping the ball in some way? Yes, Toronto made this move, but if Toronto ends up getting penalized for something the Clippers did, to me, it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, no, if Toronto trades for a player that they know is under investigation, I think they have to understand that part of the scenario.
It's still
Now, where I agree with you is, I think we have covered this part before. Jake Fisher's first story on my Substack about Toronto interest in reacquiring Kawhi Leonard was June 25th. On June 28th, we reported that the teams were talking. On June 30th, it was reported that the sides had a verbal agreement on a deal. And then it wasn't until after July 6th, when the moratorium was lifted, that the Raptors were now told, they basically were encouraged at that point that, we better pause this. And why wasn't it stated more clearly before that point? The league's argument is that they did. The Raptors were very well aware of this, but the Raptors ultimately decided they're going to put this deal on pause because, yes, I mean, they could do the trade. The league would approve the trade today if the teams wanted to do it. But if you acquire a player who is then punished, I mean, the Raptors would have to live with whatever penalty Kawhi gets. I don't see how they can't realize that.
It just seems bizarre to me. The timeline for that one is also bizarre because unlike LeBron, which I hope will be tied up next week, maybe the week after, this thing that could go all the way. I mean, the only timeline we have is before the season. I just hope this isn't one that also stretches out for the entirety of the offseason. This isn't something that we're learning about in training camp. As training camps open, we're starting to find out what the result is.
I mean, that would make it really tough for both teams. But yeah, I mean that it is. There's no question to hear the league say coming weeks, and that's the only kind. Adam Silver, when he was asked about this in his press conference earlier this week, because everyone around the league's like, why is this investigation taking so long? Why is this thing gone on since September? And Adam Silver basically said, we can't tell them to hurry it up because then they're going to say in their report, we wanted to investigate this longer and the league rushed us. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. We don't know how long it is going to take. And
yeah,
it's that has to be, I mean, there are lots of outstanding issues, restricted free agency always takes long. So Jalen Duren, your guy, Peyton Watson, Benedict Mathurin, we don't know how their restricted free agencies are going to turn out. This Portland thing definitely bears watching from here. But to me, the Kawhi story, that is number one in terms of once the All-NBA show goes on its summer hiatus, what we have to be tracking.
What about Jalen Duren? Because it seems like a lot of the reports lately, including your own, are we past the point of no return with Jalen Duren and the Pistons? Because that's the risk.
I wouldn't say that.
But this is the risk of restricted free agency, is that if it goes on too long and gets contentious, a player can feel a different way about it.
It's already contentious.
I mean, it's extremely contentious.
It's already contentious.
But you don't think it's past the point of no return? This is all posturing, and then when a deal is signed, it comes back.
No, I wouldn't say it's all posturing, but I wouldn't say, I think last summer showed us this stuff can take all summer, unfortunately. Restricted free agency is brutal for the restricted free agent. The only, clearly, the Pistons have not yet, I mean, Jalen Duren wants more from the Pistons than they're offering, and Peyton Watson wants more from the Nuggets than they're offering, or else we would have heard that we would have seen deals already. But the only recourse they have is taking the qualifying offer, which is so risky financially, because if
neither of those two players can do that, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I don't think they can.
Any restricted free agent who is willing to do that gets a massive hat tip from me, because it is so risky.
A hat tip, but to me it might be foolish. That's betting on yourself, but in an insane way.
Yeah, it's very, very risky, because even offers that are less than, if you're the restricted free agent, just hypothetically speaking, if you're a restricted free agent and you want $100 million, over 4 years and the team offers $50 million and your qualifying offer is $10 million, it takes a lot of guts to play out 1 year at $10 million because $50 million is better long-term security than nothing. It's not what you wanted. It's not close to what you wanted, but you know, like I said, it takes tons of guts to say, you know what, I'm going to play 1 year at 10 million when I could have banked 50 million. And the teams know it. And that's why in these cases, it always gets contentious because the teams know this and they're going to offer you less than you want. There's just no way around it. So, you know, you more often, like even as bad as the Kuminga negotiations were, which was so, you know, there was so much animus between the sides. What happened at the end of the day? Kuminga ended up doing a 2-year deal to stay in Golden State.
Right.
Last October 1st.
Yeah, it was
October 1st.
Yeah.
I mean, the first practice of the season in Golden State, Kuminga couldn't participate in it, and the guys, the Warriors, had Al Horford. The Warriors had a deal with Al Horford in July. Al Horford couldn't practice in the first practice either because he had to wait to sign until after Kuminga was done. So, yes, I mean, we are not. I don't think we're close to the point of no return because it's only mid-July.
Well, real quick though on Kuminga, he did sign, but begrudgingly, and it just felt like a divorce was inevitable. It really extended the window of contention between him and the team. And I just wonder if Duren and Peyton Watson are going to be the same where, all right, we're going to agree to a number, but I immediately want out. And now my thought is just about how do I get somewhere else on this deal that I had to sign?
Well, Kuminga also signed a very short deal. Yeah. Are Duren or Peyton Watson signing a 2-year deal with a team option in year 2? I would not anticipate that. I would think, like, if Duren does a shorter deal, the option will almost certainly rest with him and not the team. And Peyton Watson, look, I think in Peyton Watson's case, obviously, they're looking at Christian Braun, who got $25 million a year over 5. And by all accounts, everything that we've heard on that, they want more than that. But if you can't, that's what I'm saying. If the Nuggets won't furnish that,
yeah.
What do you do if you're Peyton Watson? Do you play out? If you play out 1 year on a qualifier, it's awesome. It's awesome in concept because then you're an unrestricted free agent this time next year, but you have sacrificed security. And that's why this system, it just overwhelmingly favors the teams in restricted free agency.
Well, before I get you, I know you have a heart out in 1 minute. We do have one.
We're fine. We're fine.
I do have one super chat coming in for you here that says, I get boards for days. Says, for Stein, do you think Kuminga to LA eventually happens? And 2, are the Lakers plan to get both of Kuminga and Thybulle? So we have heard this rumor. I guess I'm calling this one a rumor because it's not, nobody's officially making the report, but Kuminga to the Lakers, is that something that you're hearing?
No, that is definitely, the Lakers have, that is confirmed reporting. The Lakers have been trying to execute a sign and trade for Kuminga. They've been pursuing him since the start of free agency, but I don't have the answer on, I reported yesterday that the Lakers have registered interest in Matisse Thybulle. They've already done a deal this week with Zaire Williams. So I think what the Lakers have shown is they are looking elsewhere because they know they need help on the wing. They know they need more defense on the wing. So to be able to get Zaire Williams on a 1-year minimum was very good business. That is a great flyer for them to take. Is there room for both Kuminga and Thybulle?
Crowded wing rotation, yeah.
I mean, they could use both. I think it's still TBD how it plays out, but just I think what it is illustrating is the Lakers know that is a position of need and they're operating with urgency to try to fill it.
Last one we have from Space Available, not really for you, just kind of a comment he wanted everyone to know. He says, the best decision LeBron made is finally going bald. Sometimes they send in, I don't even know what to say.
Space Available, is that like cap space available? That's pretty good. I could see that being that could be a name of a podcast.
There you go. Cue the outro music there, Atticus. Mark,
we did it.
We did it, man.
Despite the coughing, I apologize. I I was worried about you when this started. I was feeling good. I don't know what happened.
It's bittersweet to say goodbye to the show for a couple months. You know, we will be back as the next season starts to wrap up, and you never know. Maybe we do an emergency pod in the middle of the offseason if something big enough.
I have to say that this summer there will probably be things that necessitate an emergency pod.
So stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed to it.
Don't be surprised if we're back.
I do want to say I'm very thankful to you, Mark. Thankful to Jason Timpf, obviously Tim Legler, super producer Atticus, who crushed it this year, provided a lot of interesting things, especially on our social channels. If you're not following, you should follow there.
Atticus is his
grinder.
His tweets and his charts and his stats are world class.
World class, man. And we especially thank all of you guys, the listeners, and especially everybody that shares the show. We're very proud of it. Being around, everyone in Vegas. We didn't get the link up, Mark, unfortunately, but being around, it just was nice to see how much everybody, cares about this show, puts into it, and how proud we are of the show. So we appreciate you guys for being part of that. And as we take a little break to get some well-earned rest, we do want to say thank you, and we look forward to season 4 because it will be back. Hit the like button for us. Make sure you're subscribed. We'll see you sometime.
Thanks, everyone.
We all silly like the mayor.